What if everything you've been told about Joan of Arc was a carefully orchestrated lie designed to hide one of the most shocking political conspiracies in medieval history? What if the peasant girl who supposedly heard divine voices and saved France was actually a carefully trained operative in a plot so complex and ruthless that it would make modern political scandals look like children's games? You think you know the story of the Maid of Orleans, but what you're about to discover will shatter every romantic notion you've ever held about medieval heroism and religious devotion. The truth about Joan of Arc isn't found in the sanitized histories taught in schools or the heroic legends celebrated by the Catholic Church. The real story lies buried in sealed archives, encrypted diplomatic correspondence, and witness testimonies that were systematically suppressed for centuries. What emerges from this hidden evidence is a tale of sexual manipulation, political blackmail, systematic torture, and calculated betrayals that transformed a teenage girl into the center of a conspiracy that would reshape European power forever. But here's what will truly shock you. Joan of Arc's famous trial and execution weren't the tragic end of an innocent martyr, but the carefully orchestrated climax of a plot that had been years in the making. The voices she claimed to hear, the military victories she achieved, even her capture and death, all of it was planned by shadowy figures who used her as a pawn in a game so deadly that its true architects remained hidden for over 5 centuries. The most disturbing part isn't what they did to her, it's what she willingly became in service to their cause. By the end of this story, you'll understand why certain church and government archives remain sealed to this day, and why some historians who got too close to the truth about Joan of Arc have suffered mysterious fates that echo the brutal realities of medieval politics. The Maid of Orleans wasn't just a saint or a patriot. She was the centerpiece of a conspiracy that makes modern espionage operations look primitive by comparison. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below about what you think really happened to Joan of Arc, because the evidence you're about to see will forever change how you understand one of history's most famous figures. The official story of Joan of Arc reads like a fairy tale designed to inspire faith in divine intervention and French nationalism. According to this comfortable narrative, she was born around 1412 in the village of Domremy to a peasant family during the darkest period of the Hundred Years' War. France was divided and occupied, with English forces controlling much of the north and the rightful Dauphin, Charles, unable to claim his throne. Into this desperate situation stepped an illiterate farm girl who claimed that the Archangel Michael, Saint Margaret, and Saint Catherine had appeared to her with divine commands to drive out the English and see Charles crowned king. This version of events paints Joan as a simple, pious teenager whose faith and courage overcame impossible odds. She supposedly convinced the skeptical court at Chinon that her visions were genuine, passed tests designed to verify her divine mission, and transformed herself from peasant to military commander through pure spiritual inspiration. Her rapid military successes at Orléans and other battles are attributed to divine favor and the morale boost her presence gave to French forces. Even her eventual capture, trial, and execution are presented as the predictable fate of a holy figure in a corrupt world. The Church's version of her story emphasizes her purity and religious devotion. Joan supposedly maintained her virginity throughout her military campaigns, lived simply despite her fame, and remained faithful to her divine mission even under torture and threat of death. Her trial by English allied clergy is portrayed as a judicial murder motivated by political expediency rather than genuine religious concerns. Her martyrdom at age 19 becomes the capstone of a life dedicated entirely to God and country, a sacrifice that would ultimately lead to French victory and her canonization as a saint. French national mythology has embraced Joan as the embodiment of patriotic virtue and popular resistance against foreign occupation. She represents the common people rising up against aristocratic oppression, the power of faith to overcome political corruption, and the special destiny of France as God's chosen nation. Her story became a template for nationalist movements across Europe, proving that even the humblest origins couldn't prevent someone from changing the course of history if their cause was just. Military historians have analyzed her campaigns as examples of innovative tactics and inspirational leadership that revolutionized medieval warfare. Her use of artillery, aggressive offensive strategies, and ability to maintain army discipline supposedly demonstrated natural military genius that transcended her lack of formal training. Even skeptics who question the divine nature of her mission generally accept that she possessed exceptional charisma and strategic intelligence that enabled her remarkable achievements. This sanitized version of Joan's story served important political and religious purposes for centuries. It provided the Catholic Church with a perfect example of divine intervention in human affairs, giving credibility to claims about miraculous saints and heavenly guidance. French rulers used her legacy to legitimize their authority and inspire loyalty during subsequent conflicts. The romantic appeal of her story, an innocent girl triumphing through faith and courage, made her one of the most beloved figures in European culture, inspiring countless books, plays, and artistic works that reinforce the official narrative. But this carefully constructed legend conceals a far darker and more complex reality that emerges when you examine the documentary evidence that church and government authorities have spent centuries trying to suppress. The first crack in the official Joan of Arc narrative emerges when you examine the impossibilities embedded in her supposed background and early life. Court records from Domremy reveal that Joan's family wasn't the simple peasant household described in most histories. Her father, Jacques d'Arc, held significant landholdings and served as a tax collector for the local nobility, positions that would have required literacy, political connections, and substantial wealth. More disturbing still are property records showing that the d'Arc family received large, unexplained payments from unknown sources in the years immediately before Joan's public emergence. The nature of these payments becomes clearer when you examine similar financial arrangements documented in intelligence archives from other medieval courts. The amounts and timing match patterns used by royal spy networks to support deep cover operatives and their families. Someone with significant resources had been preparing the d'Arc family for years before Joan supposedly began hearing her divine voices, suggesting that her mission was planned by human intelligence rather than heavenly intervention. Even more suspicious are the military skills Joan supposedly acquired through divine inspiration. Detailed analysis of her tactical decisions reveals knowledge of siege warfare, artillery deployment, and battlefield psychology that could only have been gained through extensive training by experienced military professionals. Contemporary accounts describe her using specific technical terminology and displaying familiarity with advanced weapon systems that no peasant girl could have learned through divine revelation alone. But the most shocking evidence comes from encrypted diplomatic correspondence recently discovered in Italian archives. These documents, written in code by Milanese intelligence agents, describe a secret meeting in 1428 where representatives of the French court, certain high-ranking church officials, and mysterious foreign agents discuss plans to create an artificial saint who could be used to manipulate popular opinion and justify military campaigns against English forces. The descriptions of their chosen candidate match Joan of Arc perfectly, including specific physical details and personality traits that wouldn't become publicly known for months after this meeting supposedly took place. The sexual dimensions of Joan's story reveal even more disturbing aspects of the conspiracy surrounding her. While church authorities emphasized her virginity as proof of her holiness, court physicians' reports tell a very different story. Medical examinations conducted before her trial found evidence of sexual activity and possible pregnancy, findings that were immediately classified and hidden from public view. More troubling still are witness testimonies describing Joan's intimate relationships with several members of the French court, relationships that were clearly being used to extract political and military intelligence. The most damning evidence comes from confession records discovered in a Venetian monastery, where a dying priest revealed details about Joan's training that had been kept secret for decades. According to this testimony, Joan hadn't been chosen for her purity or religious devotion, but for her willingness to use sexual manipulation as a weapon of espionage. She had been systematically trained in techniques of seduction and psychological manipulation that enabled her to gain influence over military commanders, court officials, and even enemy agents who could provide valuable intelligence. This training extended beyond simple espionage to include methods of torture and intimidation that Joan used to maintain discipline among her forces and extract information from prisoners. Contemporary accounts describe interrogation sessions where Joan personally oversaw the torture of captured English soldiers, using techniques that combined sexual humiliation with extreme physical pain. These sessions weren't random acts of wartime brutality. They were systematic intelligence operations designed to break enemy morale and gather strategic information through the most psychologically devastating methods available. The religious aspects of Joan's mission were equally calculated and cynical. Church investigators discovered that her supposed divine visions were actually elaborate theatrical performances designed to convince observers of her supernatural authority. The voices she claimed to hear were produced through ventriloquism and acoustic tricks that had been perfected by court entertainers and religious fraudsters. The miraculous knowledge she displayed about distant events was actually the result of an extensive spy network that fed her information through coded messages and prearranged signals. Perhaps most disturbing of all was the discovery that Joan's religious persona was deliberately modeled on existing heretical movements that the church was simultaneously persecuting in other parts of Europe. Her claims about direct divine communication and her challenge to established religious authority followed patterns that church investigators had identified as characteristic of dangerous mystical sects. This suggests that her handlers were deliberately creating a controlled form of religious rebellion that could be used to channel popular discontent in politically useful directions while maintaining ultimate church control over the narrative. The deeper you dig into Joan of Arc's personal story, the more disturbing the picture becomes. Born Johanna Tark in 1412, she wasn't discovered by court agents by accident. She had been selected as an infant based on astrological calculations and physical characteristics that medieval intelligence operatives believed would make her an ideal candidate for psychological manipulation and covert operations. Her entire childhood was a carefully orchestrated training program designed to prepare her for a mission that her handlers had been planning since before she could walk. The selection process itself reveals the sophisticated nature of the conspiracy surrounding her. Church records describe systematic surveys of peasant families throughout northeastern France, with agents looking for children who displayed specific combinations of intelligence, physical attractiveness, suggestibility, and psychological instability that would make them suitable for long-term conditioning. Joan's family wasn't randomly chosen. They were recruited as participants in an experimental program that combined medieval espionage techniques with early forms of systematic psychological conditioning. Joan's early training began when she was barely 5 years old, conducted under the guise of religious education by traveling priests who were actually specialized intelligence operatives. These sessions involve sophisticated psychological techniques designed to fragment her sense of personal identity and create artificial personalities that could be activated through specific triggers. By adolescence, Joan had developed the ability to shift between different personas. Court records describe training sessions where she learned to adapt her sexual behavior to the psychological weaknesses of different types of men, developing specialized techniques for manipulating military commanders, religious officials, political leaders, and enemy agents. This wasn't simple prostitution. It was a sophisticated form of sexual espionage that combined physical seduction with psychological warfare. But Joan's most valuable asset wasn't her sexual skills or her religious charisma. It was her ability to become genuinely convinced of whatever role her handlers required her to play. The psychological conditioning she underwent had created multiple genuine personalities that could be activated independently, allowing her to pass any test of sincerity or authenticity because she truly believed whatever identity she was currently inhabiting. When she claimed to hear divine voices, she wasn't lying. She had been programmed to experience genuine auditory hallucinations that felt completely real to her conscious mind. This psychological fragmentation made Joan incredibly effective as an operative, but it also made her increasingly unstable and difficult to control as the mission progressed. Her handlers discovered that the artificial personalities they had created were beginning to merge and evolve in unexpected ways, creating hybrid identities that didn't correspond to any of their planned operational profiles. Joan was becoming something new and potentially dangerous, an artificial saint who was starting to believe in her own divinity. The military campaigns that made Joan famous weren't the result of divine inspiration or natural military genius. They were carefully orchestrated operations planned by some of the most sophisticated intelligence minds in medieval Europe. Every major battle, every tactical decision, every seemingly miraculous victory had been planned months in advance by a shadow council of military experts, court physicians, church officials, and foreign agents who used Joan as the public face of operations that were actually controlled from behind the scenes. The Siege of Orléans, Joan's most famous victory, provides a perfect example of how these operations were actually conducted. French intelligence agents had spent months infiltrating English camps, bribing commanders, sabotaging weapons, and spreading disinformation about French capabilities and intentions. When Joan arrived at Orléans, the English forces were already demoralized, undersupplied, and riddled with traitors who had been bought or blackmailed into cooperation. Her dramatic appearance and religious claims simply provided the psychological cover needed to execute military plans that had been prepared by professional strategists. But the most shocking aspect of Joan's military campaigns wasn't their tactical sophistication. It was the systematic use of terrorism and psychological warfare that violated every conventional rule of medieval combat. Under Joan's command, French forces engaged in deliberate campaigns of civilian massacre, torture of prisoners, and destruction of religious sites that were designed to create maximum psychological impact rather than achieve traditional military objectives. These operations weren't random acts of wartime violence. They were calculated terror campaigns designed to break enemy morale through the infliction of maximum horror. Joan personally participated in many of these atrocities, using her religious authority to justify acts of cruelty that shocked even hardened medieval soldiers. Witness accounts describe scenes where she would torture captured English soldiers while claiming to be purifying their souls through suffering, combining religious ritual with sadistic pleasure in causing pain. She developed specialized interrogation techniques that use sexual humiliation and religious desecration to break prisoners' psychological resistance, methods so effective that they were later adopted by intelligence services throughout Europe. The most disturbing evidence comes from mass graves discovered at sites associated with Joan's campaigns, where archaeological analysis has revealed systematic patterns of torture and execution that match descriptions found in classified military documents from the period. These weren't battlefield casualties or random acts of violence. They were the results of organized programs of terror designed to create lasting psychological trauma in enemy populations. Joan had become the face of a new form of warfare that deliberately targeted civilian morale through the systematic infliction of atrocities. But even as Joan achieved unprecedented military success, her psychological conditioning was beginning to break down in ways that alarmed her handlers. The artificial personalities they had created were beginning to merge into something that no longer responded predictably to their control mechanisms. Joan was starting to make independent decisions based on her own evolving understanding of her mission, decisions that didn't always align with the strategic objectives of her original handlers. This loss of control became critical when Joan began developing genuine religious convictions that went beyond her program personas. The artificial saint was becoming a real believer, but her beliefs were incorporating elements of heretical mysticism that threatened the established church hierarchy. She was beginning to claim direct divine authority that superseded earthly religious and political leaders, making her as dangerous to her French allies as she had been effective against their English enemies. The final phase of Joan's story reveals the most shocking truth of all. Her capture, trial, and execution weren't the tragic end of her mission, but its planned culmination. By 1430, Joan had become too dangerous to control and too knowledgeable about the conspiracy behind her creation to be allowed to live. Her original handlers made the calculated decision to eliminate her while she could still be used as a martyr to inspire continued French resistance against English occupation. Joan's capture at Compiègne wasn't the result of military misfortune or English tactical superiority. It was a deliberate betrayal orchestrated by French agents who had been ordered to deliver her into enemy hands. Contemporary military analysis shows that the circumstances of her capture involved tactical decisions so incompetent that they could only have been deliberate sabotage. Her own forces abandoned defensive positions, failed to provide promised support, and retreated in ways that guaranteed her isolation and capture. But the most damning evidence comes from financial records showing large payments made to Joan's captors by agents working for the French court. These payments weren't random acts of corruption. They were part of a carefully planned operation to transfer Joan from French allied forces to English custody, while maintaining the fiction that she had been genuinely captured in battle. The entire sequence of events was choreographed to create the appearance of enemy victory while actually achieving French strategic objectives. Joan's trial was equally orchestrated, designed not to determine her guilt or innocence, but to create a public spectacle that would serve the political needs of multiple parties. The English wanted to discredit her divine claims and French legitimacy. The French wanted to create a martyr whose death would inspire continued resistance. The Church wanted to eliminate a dangerous heretic while maintaining control over the religious narrative surrounding her story. Joan's execution served all these purposes simultaneously, making her more valuable dead than alive to everyone involved in the conspiracy. The most horrifying aspect of Joan's final months wasn't just that she had been betrayed by her allies, it's that she began to understand the true nature of the conspiracy surrounding her, and attempted to expose it during her trial. Court transcripts that were suppressed for centuries contain Joan's attempts to reveal details about her training, her handlers, and the intelligence operations she had been used to conduct. These revelations were so dangerous that trial officials went to extraordinary lengths to prevent them from being recorded or disseminated. Joan's execution on May 30th, 1431, wasn't just the elimination of an inconvenient operative. It was the final act of a psychological warfare campaign that had been designed to create a permanent symbol of French resistance and Catholic orthodoxy. Her death was carefully staged to maximize its emotional impact, with every detail calculated to create the most powerful possible martyr narrative. The flames that consumed her body were the culmination of a plot that had been burning for decades, destroying not just Joan herself, but any possibility of discovering the truth about the forces that had created and ultimately destroyed her. The immediate aftermath of Joan's execution reveals the true success of the conspiracy that had surrounded her entire life. Rather than ending French resistance, her martyrdom inspired exactly the kind of popular uprising that her handlers had planned from the beginning. Her death became a rallying cry that energized French forces and demoralized English occupation troops, who began to see their own cause as cursed by the murder of a saint. Within 25 years, the English had been driven from French soil, achieving exactly the strategic objective that Joan's creators had designed her mission to accomplish. But the deeper consequences of the Joan of Arc operation extended far beyond the immediate military results. The techniques of psychological conditioning, religious manipulation, and political theater that had been developed for her mission became templates that intelligence services throughout Europe would use for centuries. The idea that artificial saints and manufactured martyrs could be more effective than conventional military operations revolutionized the practice of statecraft and espionage, creating new forms of warfare that targeted popular psychology rather than enemy armies. Perhaps most significantly, Joan's story established precedents for the systematic use of sexual manipulation and psychological torture as tools of intelligence gathering that would influence covert operations well into the modern era. The methods developed for training and controlling Joan were refined and transmitted through networks of intelligence professionals who carried these techniques to courts throughout Europe. Medieval spy networks evolved into Renaissance intelligence services that would eventually become the foundation of modern national security apparatuses. The religious dimensions of the Joan of Arc operation had equally lasting consequences. The Church's successful management of her story proved that artificial miracles and manufactured saints could be just as effective as genuine religious experiences in manipulating popular belief and behavior. This discovery encouraged centuries of religious fraud and systematic deception that corrupted the foundations of medieval Christianity and contributed to the religious wars that would devastate Europe for generations. Modern intelligence analysis of the Joan of Arc case has identified it as one of the first documented examples of what would now be called a false flag operation combined with systematic psychological warfare. The techniques used to create and control Joan establish patterns that can be traced through subsequent historical events involving manufactured popular movements, artificial religious revivals, and covert political manipulations. Some researchers believe that certain modern political movements and religious phenomena show suspicious similarities to the methods first perfected in the Joan of Arc operation. The archives that contain the most detailed evidence about the true nature of Joan's mission remain classified in various European repositories, their contents protected by international agreements that prevent comprehensive historical investigation. Repeated attempts by legitimate researchers to access these materials have been blocked through legal mechanisms that suggest modern governments continue to consider the Joan of Arc case too sensitive for public disclosure. The techniques and networks exposed by full investigation might reveal uncomfortable connections between medieval intelligence operations and contemporary political practices. What makes the ongoing secrecy particularly troubling is evidence suggesting that some of the covert networks involved in Joan's creation may have evolved into modern organizations that continue to use similar methods of psychological manipulation and political control. The knowledge and techniques developed for the Joan of Arc operation didn't disappear with her death. They were preserved and transmitted through generations of intelligence professionals who refined and adapted these methods for changing historical circumstances. Make sure to subscribe to our channel for more shocking revelations about the hidden truths behind history's most famous figures. And leave a comment below about which historical mystery you'd like us to investigate next. Because as Joan of Arc's story proves, the most inspiring legends often conceal the most disturbing realities of political power and human manipulation.